my previous video, I discussed general motivation and how to think about and approach these CPA exams. As a follow-up, in this video, I wanted to talk a little bit more specifically about strategy and how to study for these exams. Of course, everyone is different, and I'm not necessarily promising that this will work for you. This is just what worked for me as someone who has passed all of the exams and who is now a CPA. This is not going to be very specific exam-related material. This is more just strategy and different methods of studying that I'm hoping to help you out with. And so with that, let's get started. I'm gonna word this carefully because I don't wanna seem like I'm preaching or telling people what to do. I'm just gonna say, for me, honesty with myself was really important as I was studying, and I'm gonna explain what I mean by that. What I'm saying is that if I missed a question, it was really important to just be honest with myself and say, did I miss this question because I didn't know it or I just got unlucky? And on the other end, if I got a question right, did I get it right because I actually knew it and had it down, or did I just get lucky and guess? When I studied, I would grade myself and I would mark my answers in one of 4 categories. The first category were questions that I got right, and I knew I got them right and I was all good, so those I knew I didn't need to study anymore. The second category is questions that I got right, but I felt like maybe I got kind of lucky, or maybe I just need to study a little bit more, so I would flag those to study. The third category is questions that I would get wrong, but I felt like maybe I just got a little unlucky and I actually knew it. In some situations, I would still mark it just to study it anyway, or sometimes I would let those go. And the fourth category, of course, the most obvious one is just, I got it wrong, I don't know how to do it, I need to study more. Ranking those and dividing them into those 4 categories really helped me pinpoint which areas I needed to study more and which areas I could just leave. And that helped me get a more concentrated list of what to study versus trying to study everything at the same time. I'm going to contradict myself a little bit here. Understanding is definitely better than memorizing. The only thing I will say is that you go through this exam software, you only have so many questions. Sometimes you're gonna run into situations where you may have seen a problem before. I think that obviously if you're just memorizing the answer and circling it, that's not going to be helpful. But if you remember how to get to an answer, that is still valuable, and you will remember that process, and that will be very helpful for the exam. That is something that worked for me. So all I'm saying is that if you memorize how to do a problem, that's totally fine, because that's also part of the studying process. If you get a question right, that's great, but there is even more value in not only understanding why a certain question is right, but understanding why the other answers are wrong. Knowing that and having a deep understanding of that is really valuable. And knowing how to get to those other answers, even if some of them are wrong, is also very valuable for the exam, because you're going to be ready for whatever they throw at you. At this point in the video, I want to share my study method that worked for me and how I approached this exam. The first thing I would do is create a multiple choice practice exam of about 20 or so questions per chapter. And what I would do is test myself, and I would grade myself after that. And for every single question, I would go through and grade based on that method that I talked about earlier, with ranking the 4 depending on how well I knew it. And once I did that, I would write down the steps for everything and how to do every answer Even for written questions, I would write down my methodology and how I thought about it. The next thing I would do is keep practicing and keep running through those practice tests over and over again until I got all of them right. And that for me is what gave me the understanding as I went through these questions, and making sure that I got all of them right was the most helpful thing for me. Personal preference, but I never used the textbook. If you're someone who is kind of on the fence and you're worried because maybe you haven't heard of anyone passing who did not use the textbook, I didn't and I was fine. Some of you may love using it. I'm just sharing my experience on that. Like everything on this list, this is going to come down to personal preference. I never used the calculator function on the exam. I did everything in my head. I would recommend using Excel for the exams. Most of us are using Excel anyway. For all of you keyboard warriors out there, the usual shortcuts, most of them won't work. So that's just something to note. But within your practice software, whatever you use, they usually have the Excel function in there and you can practice going through that. I want to be really careful how I word this because I am not recommending skipping anything. I can't make that statement or recommend that to people. I'm just going to say sometimes when I would go through material, there would be a super long simulation, and I would not do every single simulation and memorize every little thing. Sometimes I would skip certain simulations. It's kind of on you to figure out what you are able to skip or what you need to spend time on. I recommend making a pass through everything. If I were to skip a simulation, I would at least watch the video going through the solution on it, because that would help give me a base understanding of what was going on. Once again, I can't make a blanket statement here on what I would recommend. I'm just talking about myself. I did not do every simulated exam. For some exams, such as TCP, I didn't even do a practice exam. But I would recommend going through a simulated exam at least one time, especially if you're someone who is new to the exam, because this will give you a really good idea of what it's actually like to sit through the exam. As you go through it, what you can do is write down areas that you may be taking too long in, and this is really going to be helpful for time management and learning how the exam goes. There are a lot of different ways to go about studying and thinking about how to approach these exams. My goal is that you have taken away something of value from this video, and one of these study methods that you can apply towards your CPA exams. As always, if you have any tips or tricks that you think may be helpful for others, then please do feel free to share them in the comments below. Stay tuned for next week, where I will talk more about the exam day and my strategy for how to handle and approach that. With all that said, thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.